Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are zeroing in on one of the most high-stakes procedures on any battlefield, the call for fire. You know, it's basically a life-or-death conversation, a special language that connects a single soldier on the ground with some seriously immense, unseen firepower, sometimes miles and miles away.
And this quote from the field manual, it just perfectly nails the core challenge, doesn't it? I mean, how do you direct powerful artillery batteries or mortar platoons that are completely out of sight and get them to hit a very specific target with pinpoint precision? Well, the answer lies with a specialized soldier and a very, very specific language they use.
Okay, here's our mission plan. First, we're going to meet the person who's actually responsible for this crazy task. Then we'll decode the special language they use, see exactly how they pinpoint targets, and walk through the real art form of correcting fire. After that, we'll take a look at how technology has completely changed the game, and we'll wrap it all up with why this human role is, believe it or not, more critical than ever.
So let's start by framing the fundamental problem. You've got these incredibly powerful weapons that launch shells in a high arc, right? They can hit targets miles away. The catch? The crews firing them can't see a thing. They're blind. So who steps in to solve this critical disconnect?
Meet our hero, the forward observer, or just FO. This is the person right there with the frontline units whose entire job is to be the literal eyes of the artillery. They are that essential human link in the chain, trained to find the enemy and then guide that lethal fire right onto them.
Now here's a key detail. The FO doesn't actually talk directly to the guns. Nope. They communicate with the Fire Direction Center, or FDC. You should think of the FDC as the brains of the whole operation. It takes the FO's request and does all the ridiculously complex ballistics math. We're talking weather, terrain, ammo type, you name it, to spit out the precise firing data for the weapon crews.
So how does the FO talk to the FDC? Well, they use this highly structured, very specific language. And this isn't just about being formal. It's a system designed for maximum speed and absolute clarity. Because on the battlefield, every single second, every syllable really counts.
A standard call for fire is basically a 6-part transmission, and you can see the whole flow right here. It kicks off with who's calling, the observer's ID. Then a warning order to the FDC, like adjust fire. And from there, it's all about the target. Where is it? What is it? How do you want to hit it? And finally, how do you want to control the mission? You absolutely cannot leave anything out.
All right, of those 6 steps, number 3, target location is, well, you could argue it's the most critical part of the whole thing. If you get this wrong, everything else is just useless. So, how does an FO tell the FTC exactly where to aim? Turns out they've got a few key methods. So the FO's main options are sending map grid coordinates, using what's called a polar plot, or calling a shift from a known point. And the choice between them, that's a huge tactical decision. It's all about balancing speed, accuracy, and the very real risk of giving away your own position.
Let's break this down. Sending a map grid is super accurate, but it can be slow. A polar plot is way faster. The FO just gives a direction and a distance from where they are. But, and this is a big but, it basically broadcasts your own location to anyone listening. Incredibly dangerous. A shift is the fastest and most secure, but it only works if you have a pre-planned reference point that both you and the FTC already have locked in. The FO has to make this call in just a few moments.
But look, even with perfect location data, that first round might not hit the mark. An unexpected gust of wind, a little change in air pressure, it can throw things off. And that is when the real art begins. It becomes this high-stakes dialogue between the FO and the FDC to literally walk the rounds right onto the target.
To make these adjustments, the FO uses this simple but absolutely vital piece of mental math called the Observer Target Factor, or OT factor. It's just the distance to the target in thousands of meters. So if your target is, say, 3,000 meters away, your OT factor is 3. This little number is the key to everything that happens next.
Okay, so, boom, an explosion erupts on the battlefield. The FO sees it. Using the markings in their binoculars, they measure its position relative to the target. Then they report their spotting to the FDC. Over, 20 left. All that means is the round landed beyond the target and 20 mils to its left.
And now, the FO does some quick math in their head. Let's say their OT factor was 4. That 20 mils left spotting translates to a correction of right 80 meters. They'll also adjust the range, maybe something like drop 100. And once they're confident the next volley will be dead on, they give that powerful command, fire for effect.
This whole process is just filled with risk.
Which brings us to a really critical warning. Danger close. An FO must announce this anytime they call for fire near friendly forces. It's a stark, serious reminder to everyone on the radio that the margin for error has just become razor thin.
For artillery and mortars, this is the standard distance. Any fire mission inside this 600-meter bubble is automatically considered danger close. The responsibility on that observer is just immense, as they are the one accepting that risk on behalf of the troops on the ground.
Okay, so this classic kind of analog process has been completely and utterly transformed by technology. While the principles we just talked about are still the same, the modern toolkit has revolutionized the speed and especially the accuracy of calling for fire.
You know, the classic image of an FO is that person with a map, a compass, and binoculars. Today, that's been almost totally replaced by a whole suite of interconnected digital tools like GPS and laser rangefinders. And the difference this makes? It is staggering.
Just look at this table. It shows the incredible leap in precision. Using the old-school methods, an FO had an expected target error of around 500 meters. That almost always meant long, dangerous adjustment phases. Today, a modern observer with a laser and GPS can shrink that error down to just a few meters, making first-round accuracy the new standard.
And you have systems like the Mortar Fire Control System, or MFCS, that automate almost the entire process. The call for fire is sent digitally. The system automatically figures out the ballistic solution using real-time weather data. This just drastically cuts down the time from when a target is spotted to when rounds are actually hitting it.
So after all of that, after the rounds hit, what was the goal? What effect did the FO, the FDC, and the guns actually achieve? And maybe more importantly, with all this amazing technology, why does the human on the ground still matter so much?
Well, a successful fire mission can achieve one of three effects. Suppression, that just keeps the enemy's heads down so they can't fight back. Neutralization inflicts casualties, knocking a unit out of the fight, at least for a little while. And destruction, the hardest one to achieve, renders an enemy force completely combat ineffective.
And this final quote from the field manual really gets to the very heart of it all. Technology is an incredibly powerful tool, but it doesn't replace the human in the loop. The judgment, the experience, understanding the commander's intent, and just the sheer courage it takes to do this job, all of that comes from the observer.
Which leaves us with this final thought for the future. In an age of drones, satellites, and all kinds of advanced sensors, is that skilled human on the ground still the most vital link in the chain? Thank you for watching The Explainer.